Hello, and welcome to the Spotlight. I am here joined by my two lovely co-hosts. We have the one and only Tori Rush. How you doing? How you doing, Tori?
Mhm.
Okay, I think we're having some technical difficulties with Tori. We're here with Jen as well.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Wait, Tori. How you doing, Tori?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad that you were here with us. And we're also joined by
Oh,
the one and only Jen. How you doing, Jen?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm getting over whatever it is that everybody has had, so I'm gonna try to stick myself on mute as much as possible so I don't cough in your ear.
Thank you. I appreciate and while I was in Chicago for about a month during December, and first of all, I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised, and that was next level cold. I remember the meteorologist
you
the,
got a
me-
Midwestern cold finally.
the meteorologist said today is 0 degrees, but it feels like minus 17, and she was 100% right. It was cold as hell, so I froze my butt off. I got sick, and it took I don't never get sick, right? But I got
Right.
sick. It took me forever to get over it, but I am good now, strong as a horse. Glad to be back in beautiful Los Angeles, where it's 80 every day, and I'm just so happy to be here, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad to celebrate 2018 with you fine people. But we have a tremendous guest. This is his third time being on the program. This guy is a filmmaker, he's an actor, a martial artist, a writer, a producer, editor. I mean, I can just keep going on. And I've seen this brother breakdance. This brother can do it all. It's the one and only William Lee. How you doing, sir?
All right, how are you?
Pretty good, man. And I know I didn't even list all your tools in your toolbox, but we'd be here probably the next Tuesday.
Yeah.
But I love these people who can do so much and get a lot accomplished. And I'm happy to be here with you, chopping it up. For those who may not have heard the first two times that you were on our show, can you kind of give us a little bit about your background?
Was born in New York. Sometime in the '70s, the family moved to Ohio. It was part of my father. He's a World War II veteran and an aircraft engineer, and the opportunities were really great out in the Midwest. Ended up in a little town called Dayton, Ohio. Sometime in 1974, I went to the drive-ins with my sister. A lot of your listeners will probably say, "What the hell's a drive-in?" Anyway, it's where you watch movies out in your car. It was outside, and you had a little speaker box attached to the window. And I went to see Bruce Lee for the first time. So three of his films, and ever since that day, that's all I've ever wanted to do is make action movies. So, and as I was telling you before we went on the air, I always wanted to be the Black Bruce Lee, so to speak. And that sort of has been my driving force for everything I do in film. And so, for the past 40 some odd years, I've made films, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. Failure, success, up the hill, down the hill. And here we are today.
Now, just a side note, I was a big fan of Bruce Lee, and I always say Bruce Lee is the reason why a lot of brothers got knots in their head.
Yes.
Because when we were younger, we would have the nunchucks, and we thought we were Bruce Lee, and we kept popping ourselves in the head with the nunchucks.
Yes.
But I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan to this day, and have all of his movies. We used to be able to quote them backwards and forward, and thought we were Bruce Lee, and it's
Well, you
Mhm.
know that I'm a first degree black belt, so I have studied June Fawn quite a bit, and I appreciate his artistry in martial arts. So yeah, he was a big influence on me too.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. They just recently did a movie about. Well, it wasn't even about Bruce
Yeah.
Lee. That Birth of a Dragon crap.
It was awful. Oh my God.
I didn't watch it, but I
Well,
was.
the problem was the same problem Hollywood always has with putting people of color or women in starring roles. They were afraid to let a Asian carry the film. So essentially, they had a white surfer dude do the narration, and Bruce Lee was sort of like this cast off ancillary part to a film, which was supposed to be about Bruce Lee.
Right.
So that's why and the way Bruce was portrayed in the film, he was really cocky, over the top, just wanting to get in fights all the time, which was the furthest thing from Bruce Lee's actual nature. And I was going to say, my cousin George actually trained with Bruce Lee back in the late 60s and 70s. I didn't find this out until about 3 or 4 years ago. The woman I married, it was her cousin, and everybody realized I really like Bruce Lee. She says, "I got something to show you," and she shows me a picture of my cousin George with Bruce Lee, and I'm like, "Oh my, what in the hell? This is freaking amazing." So,
That's awesome.
But the other thing too, you were mentioning about black people going to see kung fu movies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we used to go to the drive-in. I used to carry in a cassette tape recorder and record the films. Now, this was before videotape was in vogue.
Oh, wow.
And this is how I began to process what Bruce was doing on film. And I sort of coordinated what I had in my memory with the sounds of the recording that I took home and sort of pieced together the movie in my mind. And so when I make movies now, I generally start with a script, but I use images in my mind to put the script out. And so consequently, I get on set. I don't have a storyboard. Everybody's looking at me like, well, Will, what do we do next? Now, I've got the movie in my head. So I'm walking around saying, what the hell's wrong with you guys? You know what's next. And they don't, because they can't get inside my head to figure it out. So that sort of became a practice ground for actually doing my own films, is this committing to memory those maneuvers and the angles and the shots and the kinds of characters you wanted and the dialogue. And it's all like up in my head all the time. And people always ask me how, because I write movie scripts generally within 2 weeks. I mean, if it takes me more than 2 weeks to write a feature, I've got issues. I'm just not concentrating. And that comes from a lifetime of, one, not having a lot of friends. So my best friends were people on paper. And the other overriding factor is that when we moved from New York to Ohio in the 60s, it was a big culture shock, because in New York, I lived next to an Italian mob guy, okay? And across the street was a Polish guy. And there were all these different people from all different backgrounds. And I moved to Dayton, Ohio in the late 1960s. I was in a black, lower-class neighborhood, and it was segregated from the white neighborhood, and it was segregated from the whatever neighborhood. And so I had to learn how to assimilate into that culture again. It wasn't just, I could be who I wanted to be. Now I had to act tough when I was in a black neighborhood. Then when I went to the white neighborhood, I had to change my facade or image to blend in so I didn't get lynched or killed or whatever. So it became really hard to trust anybody, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so in that sense, I became my own best friend, and the things I typed on paper, that was the people I talked to. And I know that makes me sound like I'm a nut, but this is how I am as I am now. So,
you know what I love about, writing is it is like playing God.
Mm-hmm.
Like you control who lives and who dies. You can make yourself the hero or the villain or whatever makes you feel more comfortable. So it definitely, writing definitely supports my God complex. I wonder if you agree with that.
Well, mine's a little different. Actually, and this is also going to sound crazy, is the characters speak to me as I write. And what I mean is, I will write a piece of dialogue for a character, and the character will say, now, I wouldn't say that, right, Will? You've got to go back and change that. And I go back, I do the changes, and I look at it again, and I say, damn, somebody was right on. This character knew what they were supposed to say and what they were supposed to do. Now it makes sense to me. So there's this constant churning in my head of story ideas and how characters should go. And so finally, when the voices quiet down, I think I have the script that I want. Essentially, there's always this lingering feeling that something needs to be changed, and I know the script is not complete. But once those voices finally, say, okay, well, we think you got it, then I stop writing. Then it's time to make the movie. So that's how I do the whole writing process.
I kind of do the same thing a little bit. I let the character kind of overtake me, and I write things very fast.
Yes.
So yeah, I get your process. Like,
yeah.
I can knock out a whole article in 15 minutes.
Right.
I don't know why.
The reason you write fast is because they're talking to you. You don't really have to come up with the concepts. There's that voice telling you, okay, and then I want you to, and you got to include this, and wait a minute,
yeah.
And that's how I type too. So I'll type the original draft of the script, and it looks like somebody was trying to type Chinese. I mean, you can't read it. I understand it, but you can't. So I got to go back and do spell checks for half the day to make it make sense and format.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, let's get into well, you know what? I think we didn't. 6 Feet Knee Deep hadn't come out yet the last time you were on, and that was your last film that was in Redbox.
Right.
And then now you have the movie 6 Feet Below Hell.
Right.
First of all, none those movies are absolutely not in the same universe, right?
No. Three Knee Deep, and the story behind Three Knee Deep is that, again, we're dealing with Hollywood mentality. And as we were talking about before we got in the air, is Frank Zappa once said that the old days of making records were the best because you had a bunch of really old guys who didn't understand what the hell he was doing, and they said, you know what? We don't know what it is, but the kids like it. We'll put it out there. Maybe it'll work. Now you've got all these young executives in Hollywood that run around with other people just like them that live in the same world as they do, and they watch women and ethnic minorities and people of color and whoever through this glass. They don't live in that world. So they watch me, they watch the ladies, they watch you on TV. So their idea of reality is what they have seen as opposed to what they have lived. So consequently, Three Knee Deep was a film where they wanted it to be the typical gangster film where the original synopsis was 3 gangsters break out of jail and they are in search of something. That was the only thing I was given. And I was given a poster. So they said, Will, you got 3 weeks to make a movie. So I wrote the script where I was a Jamaican drug lord who had a Harvard education, who actually had a running business as opposed to being a drug dealer. Obviously, his money had come from the drugs. But it wasn't your typical, the gangbangers go in the hood and everybody shoots it up. So it became this complex drama, and then an FBI agent gets involved, and I work with her to take down the real bad guys. So that wasn't what Redbox and the producers wanted. But once they got it, now they said, oh, wait a minute. So you mean black people and women can do this too? I mean, it was like sort of eye-opening for them. And so, I mean, it was at Redbox for 16 weeks, which blew me away. Again, that was a film I expected it to do well. I didn't expect for it to remain at Redbox for 16 weeks. So 6 Feet Below Hell was totally my idea. We have an investment group that when they want to do a film, they come to us and say, here's several $1,000s, go shoot the movie. Well, this time around, they were taking a little too long for my taste. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this film I've been wanting to do. It's got zombies in it, but zombies will not be the focus of the film. Zombies is sort of an ancillary part to the movie. And so we shot that same thing. I wrote the script in 3 weeks. We shot it in 7, 8 weeks. Redbox was calling for the film as soon as we had it done. It was out in Redbox stores about a month and a half later. In fact, the process for us is so fast it becomes almost impossible. There was one deadline that was almost impossible to meet. And for an independent filmmaker, it's nice to have that because typically you're on hold all the time. It's like, this is not what we want right now. Let's wait, do something different. We'll get back to you. But in our case, we have the luck to have a connection that when they want to film, basically they come to us, boom, it's out. 6 Feet Below Hell, I just did it in the hopes that it would hit. And I'm proud to say that this week we're over 8 months at Redbox. And as you probably know, even for major Hollywood films, that's a long time to be in a distribution, first run distribution. So really happy with the success of that. I started to gamble on myself because I had to put up my own money for 6 Feet Below Hell. 3 Knee Deep was investors. This movie was me saying, okay, here's my money, let's go. And
congratulations, by the way.
So, yeah, I love it.
And you did, you did a lot of things in this film that a lot of people are hesitant to do. Like, okay, so you have special effects. I'm talking about as far as independent filmmaker. You have special effects. You have the visual sound and makeup. You also have a huge cast.
Yes.
You have quite a bit of people that are in your cast. And then and the locations, are all over the place as far as what you are able to accomplish. And I thought you did an excellent job of marrying all of these things together to create this film. I have so many questions about the film, and I think the first thing I want to talk about is there's a scene very early on where it took place in England. Mm-hmm. So where did you find those actors from, and tell me about that whole sequence and how that how it came out and all of that.
Well, those are some awesome friends that I actually met on Facebook, Frank Cannon and the folks over in England, I've been talking to them online, and they do films overseas as well, and they do some really exceptional work. They don't have the outlet that I have to release films. I wish they did, because they blow me away as far as overall production and just the English accent and the way they interact with each other, mannerisms, colloquialisms, the whole 9 yards. And so I said, well, I've got some money in the budget, and I want to start the film off with an international flavor. And I want you guys to actually be the beginning of the zombie virus. So you have an Islamic terrorist who sets off a bomb in this cabinet meeting. And they basically, I gave them the body of the script. I told them to cast whoever you thought would work. Casting was magnificent. And basically, they shot it for me in a couple of weeks. They sent me over the footage, edited it in, and rest is history. I always like to put, as I said, diverse cast. The problem I have sometimes is trying to make sure I don't overdo it, because there was a film I shot many years ago called Demons Rise, and we had over 70 cast members in. The movie was an absolute nightmare, trying to keep up with who was who, what they were doing, why they were in the film. I remember a critic in the United Kingdom said the only issue I had was money and just too many people, and which was pretty much the truth on that one. In this one, I tried to make sure you were consistently on a certain group of characters, but I always like to bring in fresh blood during a film. I really don't enjoy films that are like two people in a cabin and the whole weekend is who's going to kill who. And I mean, yeah, there's a market for that, but that's not me. I like to bring fresh characters to add different offshoots of the story. And instead of the traditional 3 acts, I always have that 4th act or even a 5th act at the end of the film. So you're like, is this movie like ending now? Can I go do what I gotta do, or got something else up here? So, and that is my sequel provision. It's always like opening an open end to the film. If I ever get the money or to go ahead to go do another part to that film, there it is, waiting for me.
Now, what was the most difficult thing about making this film?
As always, it's people. Typically, when you're working outside of Hollywood, trying to get the right people is always a difficult task, because some people just do not, and this is my biggest pet peeve, and I don't want to get on my rant, but people do not understand the business. There are people who come to me to believe I'm going to make them millionaires and famous overnight. And I try to explain to them, this is independent film. We don't make millionaires overnight. It's a long, hard road. I've been doing this for 40 years. It's only in the last 10 years I've been able to really achieve the kind of success that I envisioned when I was a teenager. So you have to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff, as the saying goes, and find people that are going to be dependable, narrow it down, and make sure those are the ones in the film. And it seems like every film we have, there's somebody who's really gung-ho at the start, and then about 2 weeks into it, they're complaining about they got to go to a bowling tournament, or, you know, something's happening with the family, or I can't be there, and it just throws the whole thing into chaos. So basically just making sure that the shooting schedule was coherent enough that I could keep people in the film and not lose people through attrition. And that's always the toughest part. The stuff behind the scenes is the tough part. The special effects and the kung fu and the music and all that great stuff you see on screen, that's easy. Just the human element is always the toughest part of independent filmmaking. And it's the nature of the beast. I mean, you just don't have the funds to give people Hollywood salaries. But for the people that understand what we're doing and stick with it, well, then they reap the fruits of what we're doing, because now they've been in the world view for 8 months. I mean, now they go to audition for a job. Hey, I'm in Redbox. Oh, okay. Well, come on, let's go. So now you have that credibility and you have that track record. And so that your career just, takes that leap. So.
Now, one thing that I notice about your films is you love to put a lot of strong female parts in your films, and talk about some of the ladies that are in your cast, and your process as far as writing roles for women.
I have always had this thing where I employ colorblind and gender blind casting when I do films. I'll write a script with a certain individual in mind. But I've always told people that when you audition for me, I really don't care who you are. If you can really blow me away with your interpretation of that character, you might get the part. And also, I'm very mindful of not only the ethnic end of it, but women as well, because even in action films, you always see women as vulnerable. They've always got to be helped by some guy. They can never complete the mission unless they have a bunch of guys behind them. In my movies, I let the women carry their own story, do their own action, make their own decisions. They're not guided. In fact, in this film, Brittany Picard, who plays this sort of loner that comes to my cabin in the woods because she's on the run from this drug gang that happened near the end of the world, right before the zombie apocalypse. And she starts out as sort of the street urchin type character, but in the movie she ends up saving my life at one point. And it's always apparent that she really is in control of her own destiny. You know, no matter how much of a badass my character is in the film, she can handle her own stuff. Tiki Von Seth plays the doctor in the film, doctor who has an alcohol issue. And her performance is always, she's really a tremendous actress. And in this film, it stands out because a lot of the stuff she did, people don't know she ad-libbed. I mean, generally with Tiki, I just say, here's the scene, here's the dialogue, honey. It's on you, do it. And generally she comes up with some kind of gem during the shooting of those particular scenes. So it's always important to me to make sure that people are not put in stereotypical roles, regardless of who you are, where you come from. There are a lot of roles that I wrote for quote unquote black people that I actually give to white people in the film. So they end up saying dialogue as if a black person was speaking it. And obviously this becomes a shock value to the audience. They're like, why is he talking like that? What is he saying? Why is, you know, and I always want to keep the audience guessing about who is who, and there's no stereotypical portrayal of anyone in any of these films. So that to me, that's important. It's different. And you know, Hollywood, again, it always wants to go back to those same generic type of roles and actions.
Now, my favorite character, other than yours, of course, is the brother wearing the fatigues. That dude was really good. I hope you work with him again. What's his name?
Ray Powell.
I like him a lot. He was funny.
The thing about Ray, and Ray, if you're out there listening, I say this with all due respect. You do not know how good you are. Ray is just somebody who should be in LA right now, recouping millions of dollars for all of his performances, because Ray, again, is a person who I basically give him the dialogue and I let Ray run with it. To me, Ray could do no wrong. Ray comes out, boom, boom, boom. He has these little quips and lines when I'm not expecting it. And the interesting thing is when I first showed him the character, he was worried about being, again, the typical black guy who's always running from something, you know, the characterization of a black man who can't really handle his business. I said, Ray, and this is one thing I tell my actors is you have to trust your director. If you don't trust your director, you don't need to be in my film. I said, just trust me. And as he began to see what I was doing with this character, a character who was at first on the run and then takes control of the situation by the end of the film, he was like, "Oh, I'm all about that. That's fine. Let's do it." So, Ray and I have an excellent relationship. I'm always putting him in something in terms of filmmaking. He's in our new movie coming out next year, Black Mamba Rising. So we've got him back again. But Ray is the kind of actor that you take notice to. You don't just gloss over him like, oh, he was just one of those extra characters. He's the man. Ray's the man.
Yeah, he was very funny.
Yep.
And he in a way he I don't want to say, I hate to say someone stole the movie, but he stole he stood out very prominent in the film. He was good. And also the sister that was in his group, you know, the four
Banza. Yes.
She was awesome as well.
In fact, Banza is a great director too. She has a film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she has a film coming out. And she's going to kill me for not remembering the name of it, but it's coming out, I think, next month, as a matter of fact. They're having a premiere in Indianapolis. But Banza's a tremendous director, fabulous actress. She was in, we did another movie called Straight Outta Hate, which we really couldn't get a distribution deal because it was way too controversial for your mainstream audiences. You know, Mr. Trump might have sent some of his soldiers to shut us down if we showed that movie. Which hence, there you go. But Banza is a phenomenal actress, and again, she's another person. And this is what I do: I have an ensemble group of people that, when I have a film, I say, "Okay, here's your role," and it's not always going to be a starring role, it's not always going to be a featured role, but somewhere in that film, I can use them to drive that movie forward. And so, as long as they're willing to stick with me, I'm going to stick with these people to carry the load. But yeah, Banza and Ray are just phenomenal.
There was another scene in the film that had me and my friend Miosha, she's a filmmaker as well. We watched the film together, and the president.
Oh yeah,
we were on the floor dying laughing. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Russ Crowley, he's actually a lawyer in real life.
Oh wow.
And yeah, Russ is from Kentucky, and just the most beautiful. I think of him like a brother, a long lost brother. Russ drives 3.5, 4 hours from Kentucky to come shoot me every time he comes to shoot. And it may be just one, like for the president thing, we shot that within like an hour. So he drove all the way up there just for that scene, and he was happy. He was happy to do it. So Russ is just, I mean, that whole scene was just, and again, he's the kind of actor I don't have to give a lot of direction to. I'm like, Russ, you're the president. Zombies have just taken over the world. What do you say? And, you know, he runs with it. That's what we did, you know.
We died laughing watching the thing because it's really funny.
It is.
And then let me talk about your hair in the film.
Yes.
You had a lot of you had your face covered up a lot. Was that on purpose?
Yes. Yes, it was. Actually, when I was younger, I'll have to show you some pictures, but I had dreads when I was younger. Obviously, through the years and with my lupus and chemotherapy and all the stuff I've been through over the past 20 some odd years, I don't have dreads anymore. I'm bald. But that whole thing was, he's sort of a mystery man. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, I wanted him to come at his enemies like, if they can't really see what I'm thinking and what I'm going to do in this fight, then they're in trouble. And that was the whole concept behind that. It's just, you see a lot of these movies like these, there was a movie called Ninja Assassin. All through the movie, the guy had hair in his face. And now he was just mysterious and people didn't want to fuck with him. And so that's what the whole concept behind that was. That was done on purpose. Yep. So, yep.
I thought so. We were kind of debating that about that as a choice.
Yeah.
And another thing too, the fighting style. What is this fighting style that you were using? And talk about the choreography of the fight scenes.
Yeah, I choreograph all my own stuff. I've been, like I said, been doing it for 40 years. I use a combination of Chinese kung fu and obviously American boxing, kicking, you know, all different Korean styles. And typically my theory on fight scenes is you really have to do like Bruce Lee and be a person that expresses themselves in the moment. So there is no long list of things I want to do in a fight scene. We get to the set, I see the surroundings I have, how I can utilize them, and I just start. I say, okay, come towards me, throw a punch, I'm going to block it. And that's how the fight scene starts. And from there, I just build out as we progress along. There is no shot sheet about left kick here, right kick there. I'm just, you know, cameraman's going crazy because I'm like, hey, move over there, take this shot from over there on a low angle here, boom, 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 boom. Because again, I'm seeing this in my head, how I want it to play out. So all those fight scenes are just spur of the moment, how I think they work, and then I make sure that they work for the camera angle. That's probably the most important thing, is making sure the camera angle is going to pick that fight up correctly. Because my actors, a lot of them don't understand the biomechanics behind staging a fight scene. So they'll say, well, Will, why am I turning like this? This doesn't make sense. And the other problem they have is distance. Everybody thinks that you actually have to come close to somebody to make it look real. In a fight scene, you want to be as far away as possible without showing the distance that you're from, because when you swing through somebody, you can punch faster, you can punch with more commitment. If you have to stop your fist because you're like really close to somebody, it looks phony. So it's always it's a ballet action. It's like a dance move. You gotta get the guys choreographed to move left, right, out of the way, this way. I'm punching through the center line of the camera. So yeah, all the martial arts, those are things that I come up with. And now there are times before shooting, I have sort of a general idea of how I want the fight scene to go, but the actual choreography itself takes place on the set just before we actually film it. And that also preserves the performer's energy too, because I mean, if you run through a fight scene 12 times before you shoot it, you're going to look like shit by the time we film the thing. So
no one got hurt or anything during any of
No.
And
I almost
for those
got hurt one time. This story still befuddles me. We had a guy. This was a film we shot 8-9 years ago. Demons Rising, the same one that I had the nightmare experience with 70 people. And this guy was like he said he was a martial artist, a cook, a massage therapist, a hypnotherapist. He just was jack of all trades. We did a fight scene where he nearly put my eye out using a staff. And I swear to God, I thought I was blind. And I wanted to take this guy and just break him in half. And the issue we had was the guy who was financing the film, that was his buddy. So I really couldn't, beat his ass because we'd lose the funding and the backing that we had at the time. But that was the one occasion where I really thought that I had really bit the bullet I didn't want to bite. So that was the one time. We made sure everybody's safe. We make sure that the scenes aren't too. I mean, we're not doing Jackie Chan stunts. You know, people aren't jumping down from 5-story buildings. We always keep it really based on the ground, and then stuff that's simple for people to do. But for fight scenes, the reaction is the most important thing. How you take a punch, how you take a hit. All the fancy gymnastics and the punches, that's fine. But how you look when you're hit, that's what sells a scene.
And for those who don't know, William is ripped. This brother, brother's Jack, and you don't want to run up on brother William in a dark alley. You don't want to run up on this brother. So,
well, we were funny. My wife and I were having that conversation the other night because there was these kids in front of this restaurant, and the first thing they wanted, "Hey, mister, you got $2?" And I'm from New York, so I don't trust anybody. So I just sort of slowly turned to the kid and I said, "Son, I just don't have it." And that was the end of the conversation because I guess they sensed that, this was not the time to be bothering me with that. And the one thing about martial arts that's very important for people to understand is if you have someone who takes martial arts to be a really exceptional kicker or a really exceptional puncher, they have the wrong mindset for it. My teacher taught me the traditional Shaolin style. He beat the shit out of us for 3 hours a day, 3 times a week, and that was our kung fu. It wasn't about being the next Bruce Lee. It was about taking a punch, learning how it felt to be hit, so that if you were going to fight someone, you would understand the ramifications of what you did. And so he just made sure that we were scared enough of him to understand that you may run into somebody like my teacher one day and think you have the upper hand and you get your ass whipped. So kung fu to me is avoiding fights, avoiding conflict, trying to work a way around it. I have avoided more fights in my life than I have actually fought. Now, the fights I did have to get into, people were injured, and it wasn't me. That's another story. But for the most part, when I've come into situations where people are threatening or whatever, basically, I look at them, I go, well, you don't want to do that. And that's, I don't get into a shouting match, MF for this, and I'm going to F you up. No. I'm just like, you don't want to do that. And that's enough to discourage somebody.
Right, that's how I am too.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. What you got to do? I'm right here.
Well,
so that's how
the fighting is very impressive in the film, as well as now you had a lot of weapons in this film.
Yes.
Talk about the weapons and how that how that worked. Did you are these like they were real weapons, right?
There were several. Yes, there were several real. There are a lot of replicas that are what you call close to real. They're modeled off the real gun, but they're not capable of firing bullets, obviously, because we don't want to have any of the shit that went down with John Eric Hepson and Brandon Lee. Right. So we're super safe with that. Doug Whitlatch is my armorer. He has a fantastic selection of automatic and regular weapons, and he always provides what we need. And as you saw in the film, we had a little bit of everything.
Oh yeah.
But he instructs the kids in the technical applications, how to follow somebody, how to follow a target, how to do a attack, surveillance, the whole 9 yards. Doug is the man. He was in the armed services as well. So it's important to have that kind of expertise to make, as you said, look real. And so Doug, I couldn't thank enough. He just really made the film. And without him, the film wouldn't have happened. I'm just sorry. It just basically, Doug was the linchpin. And he then would, while I was doing my directing thing, basically, I could be confident that the actors are getting the proper instruction on how to handle the gun. Basically, that was the long and short of it. And to me, that's number one. That's something that really, I couldn't have a divided attention about. I'm trying to tell you how to do a line, and oh yeah, don't pull the trigger. You got to have somebody over there saying, don't point the gun at yourself. Don't put your finger on the trigger unless you're intending to shoot someone.
Right.
So Doug was a true lifesaver. Yeah.
And the makeup too. That's the thing about especially zombie films is the makeup has to be on point, or that'll ruin the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
The makeup was excellent, and the blood as well.
Yeah. Jason Sherlow, who was my producer, was the head of the makeup department. Harry McCain was the main makeup artist. And they would come in early. They would set, it was freezing cold. I forgot to mention that. We were shooting this in the winter. And I guess you saw the one scene where I was walking in the snow with the rifle and the zombie. It was cold. So they would set up a tent with a heater, and we didn't have access to electricity all the time, so we have to plug in wherever we could. And people would come under the tent, they'd get their makeup on, they'd run out into do their shot and then back into the tent. So it was just a bunch of logistics and getting everybody in position. It all somehow it all came together. And as I said, I'm lucky to have a crew of people that I can just pass that ball to, because there were days in my early days of filmmaking where that was all me. I was the production manager, the director, the makeup guy, the guy fighting, the guy shooting when I wasn't on camera. I was checking the audio. It's too much. I mean, I'm too old. I'm too old for that anymore. It's like I got to have people who know what they're doing, and I can delegate. So, and I think that's why we've had such success over the past few years. Is now I can concentrate on directing and editing the film and acting. I don't have to also worry about, did we have the guns in today, and where's the lights at, and is the costumes right, and did you get the makeup? No, I just have people check in with me. William, it's here. Okay, let's film. So it makes it a lot easier.
And the locations were great. You said you shot that in Cincinnati, was it?
We shot in northern Kentucky and parts of Cincinnati. But yeah, we had great access to Fort Thomas, Kentucky. That was courtesy of Abe Synth and Tiki Bunsen. Tiki, as I said, played the doctor in the film. And her significant other, Abe, who is our locations manager. And Abe, he comes up with places like, they're just blowing up. As you saw in the film, all this stuff was like given freely by the city of Fort Thomas, Kentucky. They didn't ask us for large amounts of money. They didn't have special permits to sign. We had no restrictions. We carried guns out in the open. We did fight scenes. We did makeup. We served people food. And it's really, that's probably the hardest part of filmmaking, is those locations, because if you don't have them, your film looks like you shot it in your mom's basement. Basically, you've got to have different locations. So we basically had the city of Fort Thomas. I mean, the police would come up and ask me, "Mr. Lee, everything okay? What do you need?" I felt great. It was phenomenal. It was an amazing experience. So all thanks to Abe and Tiki and the city of Fort Thomas, Kentucky. Just phenomenal.
Now, okay, so you what is your next film? What can we? Is Black Mamba Rising, right?
Black Mamba Rising is basically Kill Bill on steroids. Combination Buffy the Vampire meets Kill Bill. And this young lady lives in an urban neighborhood. She's murdered by corrupt cops and drug gangbangers. She goes to the other side and is sent back to basically dispatch with these people, but also she's given an additional duty to just become this super heroine who has to fight evil people on Earth with a sword. So, and then the big twist in the film, well, I'll tell you a little bit about the big twist is, well, she not only has to deal with earthly people, well, now the devil decides, well, this isn't cool. You're really messing up my show. I'm going to send some of my people to get you. So it starts out as traditional revenge drama. Now she's got to fight supernatural beings as well. So that's, and I wrote that script about 15 years ago. And originally I was going to star in it, and it was a whole different take. And, over the years, things changed. But I thought it was a perfect vehicle. Angela Williams is going to star in it. She starred in 3 Knee Deep with me as well. Angela is just, again, a tremendous actress. She just does everything perfectly. She won't agree with me. She gets very nervous on set. I always tell her, honey, just do your thing. And you can tell when you see, like, if you go back and watch 3 Knee Deep, Angela runs the show. That's all there is to it. But she's a wonderful person, but she gets nervous sometimes. It's normal. But I just tell her, settle down, you're fine, do it. She's very conscientious, and she knows her lines, and that's, and she's in a realm that she wasn't familiar with. I mean, she didn't know she was going to be an action star. She had no formal training in martial arts or anything, and then after 3 Knee Deep, she started like carrying a gun. So it was she grew into it. She likes it now, and I'm really excited to see what this movie's going to do for her and us as well.
Yeah, man. I gotta say though, I'm very happy for your success, and you're living the dream, right? To be able to make films and do exactly what you want to do, and work with the people you want to work with, and work at your, you got to feel good about that, and I'm very happy for you, man. You're a good dude, and I can't wait for your next project, man.
It's been.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you. You're a really nice guy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, same here. This was really super interesting. Sorry, I didn't have a whole lot to say, but the dynamic of what you've been able to accomplish is pretty astounding.
It's, sometimes you look at it and it's like, okay, I get a call, I go shoot a movie, great. And it's like, now it's sort of like, not routine, but it's like, now I can sort of expect that to happen. In the early days, that wasn't the case. It was like I'm mortgaging my house I'm charging my credit cards. I just sold my old car. My wife is going to divorce me because I've sold everything to make this freaking kung fu movie. And and so at some point you're like, okay, when am I going to grow up and really do what I'm supposed to do? Is make a living and do whatever I do. Well, luckily for me, I was able to make the films, have a career outside of films in logistics that also would lay the groundwork for paying the bills, basically. Because as I tell people that I mentor all the time, don't ever, ever, ever try to believe that you're just going to make your living doing films. Some people can do it. It happens. But for people who are just actors, forget it. You can't. I know Hollywood people who, if I mention their names, you'd say, wait a minute, they work a regular job? Yes, they work a regular job because 1 or 2 movies a year, do you think that's really going to pay all your bills as an actor? I mean, if you're a producer like me, sure, you can make enough money to make ends meet. If you're an actor and you're working twice a year, you're doing 2 or 3 scenes and you're getting that 2 checks, I mean, no, you got to have another gig. And that if that is in the world of film, behind the camera, that's fine. Writing, helping people do casting, locations, whatever. Find something else to make it up, because I know a lot of people who really get discouraged when they're not acting every week. I keep telling them that's a dream. Unless you're Tom Cruise, it is not going to happen for you. Don't get into this business thinking you're just going to be, okay, I'm an actor now. I can quit my job. No. If you want to pay your rent next week, you keep that job. Just make sure it's a job that you enjoy doing. So keep your day job. Yeah, there you go. Keep your day job and do your movies. That's what you should do.
Well, once again, thank you so much. And if I want to get a copy of or get a chance to see 6 Feet Below Hell, how can I do that?
Still at Redbox. Been there 8 months. I have not been informed that it's going to leave anytime soon, which is really cool for me. Redbox is all over the country. You just got to go in, put the movie title in, and do a search by zip code. It won't always come up in your zip code because it was in wide release the first 2 or 3 months. Obviously now it's shrunk, but it's still out there. You can find it. You just got to put the movie title in and hit the search button, and it'll start taking you to locations where you can get it.
I'm gonna show you. I live in West LA. I drove to Culver City to pick it up.
Yeah.
So I went to a Ralph's. Didn't even know my niece. My niece worked at the Ralph's. I bumped into my niece at the Ralph's.
This is the director's cut. If you want to just buy one, it's on eBay. Just Google 6 Feet Below Hell zombies, and it'll come up, and you can purchase it on eBay as well. And that's my director's copy. It's the extended version. We got scenes that were cut out simply because of time restrictions. As I said, I can't seem to make a movie less than 2 hours long, and it really pisses a lot of Hollywood people off because they want to put commercials in, So it's a balancing act. But I retain that artistic license. I'll sell out on some other stuff, but as far as length, I make long movies. Sorry.
Hey man, we can sit and watch Lord of the Rings, right?
There you go.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and good luck to all your endeavors.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Peace.